I'm going to get right down to our first member of Congress who's joining us, a friend, Stacey Plaskett, a representative, represents the Virgin Islands, and she is a member of the House Select Committee on Intelligence, part of the Defense Intelligence and Overhead Architecture Subcommittee, which oversees so many of these different programs. Representative Plaskett, it's really great to see you again. Look, this is a serious subject, and we convene this today with leading voices from the defense policy in Europe and the United States, many from Congress. And I'm just interested, as you look from what you know about the challenges at this moment, part of the inspiration of this was that there seemed to be some crushing needs now. And we not, in my view, I think there's a question of how nimble we all are. So I'd love to get your take on where you see the strengths and weaknesses right now, particularly within the transatlantic relationship as we face mutual challenges. So Stacey Plaskett.
Thank you. And when you're saying the relationship, you're talking about the US's
Yes, that's right.
position with that. Well, thanks for this convening, and I've been listening to the other speakers. I think this is a really important discussion that we're having about our U.S. defense preparedness, as well as to the other type of defense that we do, which is the soft policy, and that's related to our engagement with our NATO allies, as well as those who are not necessarily our part of the NATO alliance. I think that that's something that the United States needs to continually work on. One of the things that I think is very important in the defense space is America's continued dominance in this area, which is really driven by our innovation that has allowed us to have this long-term competitive edge. Innovation being the securitization of the United States ability to move forward. I'm sorry, I think someone is not on mute.
I tell my team to please mute people who are not speaking. Thank you. Go ahead, Stacey.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think Russia's invasion of Ukraine underscores the critical role that not only our defense in terms of arms has, but the NATO alliance itself, right? And our ability to work with these other countries and continue to have the type of relationship that will have create a sense of security among our allies that the U.S. is going to be there, that our word is our bond, so to speak. And if we say we're going to do something, we follow through with it. And so I think that that's the two pillars. One is our innovation, particularly in the defense space, and our ability to create arms and support our allies with the continuing expertise that we have in that area, as well as America's policy standing, our diplomatic standing with the alliance, to ensure that people know that when America says they're going to support, that we follow through.
Let me ask you a question about that. GLOBSEC, which has convened this today, has had a number of programs on the kind of geotech competition and race. And I've had the privilege of talking to a number of generals and admirals, and also people in the digital space, who've talked about the remarkable leaps that Ukraine has made in synthesizing software and the digitized battlefield. And, I won't even call it quick decision-making, instantaneous decision-making on targeting. And they reflect, I said, can we do this in the US? And they said, we have some real challenges when it comes to procurement challenges, that sort of synthesis. And so when you sort of talk about innovation and remaining ahead, my question to you is, are we ahead? I mean, are we seeing things today in Ukraine that the United States itself hasn't learned to do?
Well, I do believe we have. I mean, there's always room for growth, right? But I think through the creation and expansion of innovation-centric organizations, including the Defense Innovation Unit, Naval X, AFWER-X, and others, the Department of Defense has created pipelines that enable rapid transition of innovation ideals into fielded solutions, expanding opportunities for those smaller vendors to do work for the Department of Defense, as well as leveraging our commercial technologies. I think that we have and are able to, once we wrap our minds around it, America is the best at investing in emerging as well as disruptive technologies, whether that's AI, quantum, biotechnology, etc. I think we're the best at doing that. And I think we're going to see that more and more. I mean, Ukraine has been amazing in its application of the innovations that America has had. And I think, we have just got to keep pace with us and our partners' need in the speed of technological changes that we see not just in the battlefield, but then in times of peace as well, and how to use those innovations for economic expansion, economic growth. That's definitely going to be needed for our partners when peace occurs.
What would you say when it comes to our intelligence today is our biggest blind spot?
Hmm. I mean, without saying what I'm not supposed to say, I always think that human is the area that I most worry about. Many of my colleagues talk quite a bit about cyber technologies and cybersecurity, the safety of our grids, etc. But I think that nothing can duplicate human. And I'm always concerned as we're looking to downsizing, as there are threats against DEI and others, that we do not have a nimble intelligence capacity that looks and thinks and operates and is culturally aware of all of our partners. I look at the budgets and I know that in areas like in Africa, we are taking away some of that human and deploying it in other areas. But, I think that right around the
Right.
horizon, we're going to be very concerned about what's happening in the Sahel and our race against Russia and China for a continued democracy throughout the world.
And one last quick question that I've been asking is, I think on the broad side about building weapon systems or having, strong coordination, communication control, having an innovative basis you talked about in intelligence. These are all parts of sort of, I would say, the strength. Many people say that's how you get to peace and that's how you deter. I'm just interested in cyber ops and the incredible effectiveness and the low cost of disrupting democratic societies through disinformation, et cetera. And whether or not you see an ecosystem of deterrence developing at all ever. I mean, the CIA used to be good at disrupting other countries in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And I'm now wondering where that muscle memory is and whether or not we have to develop the ability to do what others are doing to the United States and some of our European partners.
Well, Steve, you're preaching my kind of language in that area. And I think more insidious and more problematic is Americans' denial, increasing denial of the fact that our adversaries are coming at us
Hmm.
through misinformation and disinformation. That there are attempts to try and take down the relationship between
Right.
the private sector and the public sector and the private sector and government in sharing information about the work of and it's not just China and Russia. We're seeing Iran starting in this area as well, and that misinformation and disinformation that is also done in places in third world countries, in areas that have fragile democracies, that will be problematic to us, because many of those places, while we are looking at them as being economically not viable countries, most of them are natural resources rich.
Right.
And that's something that our adversaries are really exploiting at this time.
Well, thank you very much, Representative Plaskett. We have a very big slew of people coming in today to sort of talk about this, sort of a talk show, I guess, on national security. I want to thank you for launching us and
Thank
getting us
you.
started.